Hi, and welcome to episode 100 of the Awfully Quiet podcast. I'm really excited you're here today. I'm excited if you're here for the 100th time, if you're here for the first time. For me, this certainly means something. I think for every podcaster who goes through 100 episodes and stays consistent through it all, it is a big deal. But I know that for you, it might not be as much of a big deal. But what I want to bring you today is some of my biggest moments that blew my mind. Some of the things I learned, some of the things that I feel brought some fresh angles to the way we think about being quiet at work, being the one who is awfully quiet, being the one who has trouble speaking up in meetings, being introspective, being observing, being empathetic. And I want to bring 5 learnings to you to celebrate some of those 100 episodes and, quite frankly, some of the killer guests I've had on. Now, the first one being awkward is actually an advantage. Being awkward can be such an advantage. And who I got this from is none other than Chris Yu, who I had on the podcast as one of the first guests 2 years ago. And honestly, this was a huge deal for me to land Chris as a podcast guest because he's iconic. He's an introvert. He used to feel awkward in settings, and now he's a big designer. He is the founder of The Future. I was incredibly thankful to have that conversation. And my biggest takeaway from that was there is a lot of power in being awkward. There is an upside to being or feeling like the awkward one in the room because there is always that tendency to be underestimated or to feel like you're different than everyone else. And you can make that feeling different than everyone else a huge advantage for yourself. And Chris brings that to life beautifully. Ever since then, I have had so many thoughts about how it doesn't need to feel awkward to be introspective, to be quieter, to be a person who listens more than they speak, to not be the loudest in the room. And for the very first time, I've really had, it was like a different view on being that person. And it fueled so many other episodes, so much content I put out on subtle series as well, that I was honestly grateful to have somebody like Chris on the podcast to talk about this and to, quite frankly, lead the way. The second big takeaway I want to share with you today is that introverts are actually networking pros. And I've had so many conversations on networking for introverts on the podcast. The one that stands out for me is the one I had with Hayley Dawson, actually quite recently this year. And she shared the sentiment that she thinks that introverts actually have the upper hand when it comes to networking. And the reason why is because introverts put so much emphasis on genuine connection, on building great one-to-one relationships, on asking deep questions instead of shallow questions, on being truly interested in their counterpart. And so she runs Let's Talk Human Skills, and she does these events all across London where she invites brilliant guests. She has a beautiful evening with them, and she has, honestly, lots of great entrepreneurs and corporate employees in the room. And she said that introverts are some of the best networkers, some of the people who ask the really good questions, some of the people who genuinely care and who make some really good connections, who walk away with quality connections that have the potential to become killer relationships and killer contacts in the career space. I've loved that, and I've honestly taken away that sentiment for myself as well, because networking can feel hard, but for me this is absolutely true as well. I feel like I thrive in one-to-one connection, and whenever I'm with somebody in, let's say, a more intimate setting, not at a networking event per se, and now I think of it as like, yeah, I'm really good because I come in prepared. I have questions ready. I'm not trying to wing it. I'm really going in having prepared a couple of questions, having prepared a little bit of an outline of what I want to ask. I have specifically prepped for the person in front of me. It makes such a difference. So if you feel like you want to get better at networking, I would love for you to revisit that episode. Takeaway number 3 is in that same realm. It's all about public speaking, and it's all about the fact that public speaking is a skill. It is not something that is reserved for the extroverts. It is something that you can become better at. It is something that you can train, and it is something that you can practice. I've had brilliant guests on the podcast on public speaking. I have a list, honestly have a list. And if you're interested in becoming a better public speaker, you're going to have to listen to all of them. So first and foremost, the one I was extremely blessed to have early on in the show is Matt Abrahams. He wrote a book that is called Think Faster, Talk Smarter, How to Successfully Speak When You're Put on the Spot. He is a professor at Stanford University, and I talked to him about how difficult it can be, especially for quiet people, especially for introverts in the workplace, to speak spontaneously, to speak when they're put on the spot, and to speak when they haven't really prepared and they don't know what to say. And that conversation blew my mind because it was all about how being spontaneously good, being good on the spot, doesn't come from winging it. It comes from being really well prepared and from having practiced a lot. And I love that conversation because it showed me that it is not just the extroverts that thrive in situations like this. Impromptu speaking, speaking on the spot, raising your hand in a meeting, or sharing a thought in a meeting is not something that you have to just wing. It is something that you can train. It's something that you can prepare. And especially that element of preparation came through in that conversation. Matt takes us through how you can prepare, how you can practice, actually in front of a camera or in a Zoom meeting that you invite nobody else to. Honestly, I've done it all. But there is so much power in training what to say. So prepping what to say and then training how to say it. You best believe I'm going to rewatch a solo recording like this a couple hundred times to see what I can do better. And quite frankly, this is the one lesson I'm taking away 100 episodes in, and this still feels awkward and cringy. Still doing it, and I have a lot to learn still. So if I can do it, you can do it too. Another person I had on the podcast who I adored was Heather Morrison, and she also talked about public speaking, especially for introverts. Again, one of the first episodes, and I loved how Heather brought to life, especially the aspect of how you can feel really nervous when you speak in a work setting, when you're put on the spot, when you're on a stage, when you're in front of people presenting something, speaking up in a meeting. And she talked about how to deal with visible nerves. Like what will often happen to me is I get red, like shortness of breath certainly happens. My mind goes blank when I speak in front of many people or when I do a recording like this. And so she talked brilliantly through the fact that we will likely never get rid of that fully. And again, there is a lot of prep that goes into it, practice that goes into it, and it'll go away at some point. But there is always the next thing that scares us a little, and always that, one step ahead that we feel nervous about, and where our mind will go blank, where we will feel a little flustered, and where we will be a little red in the face. But it is the sentiment of going through it regardless and building that muscle to step out of your comfort zone and do it anyway. And for it to be important enough for you to try and to go step by step, but to always expose yourself to that one level further, that one step further. And she describes that so well in terms of how you can build on it over time instead of exposing yourself to a situation that completely embarrasses you. You're never trying again. And so taking this one step at a time and trying, I don't want to say pushing through the nerves, but accepting that it's there. Honestly, some of the most authentic pieces of content that I see, some of the most authentic talks, they're not the ones that are the most polished. It's not just the most charismatic speakers that have messages that land. But I think for a speaker who is a little nervous, but who has something to say, to go out and actually say it and land that message, I feel like it's so powerful. And as introverts, as quiet people, we have so much to say too. So don't let nervousness, don't let your fear of what it might expose about your ability to speak in front of an audience, don't let that hold you back. Like, you don't see me being held back by the way I perform on camera. So let's just do it collectively. And you best believe we're going to be so good a couple of years from now. Now, there is a third one that I had on the podcast in the realm of public speaking, and is actually complete, total expert in that field. And it was Maryam Pasha. She's a TEDx curator in London. And we talked about how much prep, how much scrutiny goes into a TED Talk, and how she works with people who end up on the TED stage for months and months and months on, firstly, the content itself, like the what you want to deliver and how you make that land, like the actual script of it all, but then also the delivery of it, the how you bring it to life, how it comes across. And it's so refreshing to have that conversation with her, because obviously there are also so many things that you can do nowadays with, cutting the video and cutting out some of the things that didn't go so well, making it really sharp, that go beyond the prep and, having practiced it time and time again. I think on the TED stage specifically, you always think it's just the very polished, very outspoken, very charismatic people who end up on that stage. But she's such a beautiful example of bringing people onto that stage who have a message, who have something to say, and then she helps them prepare for it, which I find beautiful. And it just goes to show that you don't have to be a great speaker. You don't have to be the most confident person. You don't have to be the most charismatic person. You don't have to be the most extroverted person in the room. You just have to say something. You just have something that you're passionate about, that you want to share, you want to bring out into the world. That makes you a speaker. It is not the capability, the skills. It's the wanting to say something. It's the having something to say that is important. Learning number 4, and prepare yourself. This comes a little bit from left field. It is a quite unconventional one. It's one that I honestly didn't expect. This conversation drove the biggest engagement, had the highest downloads to this day. And I didn't expect that to happen. And it was with Nadia Gabrielle. Nadia Gabrielle is the creator of Projectors, Invited, and she is an expert in human design. She is a human design projector herself. I am a human design projector. And so I had a conversation with her on how projectors and human design navigate the corporate world. How do we survive, thrive? Because anyone who knows anything about human design, and apparently a lot of people do and are really interested in human design, the projector type is not the one that you would imagine thrives in corporate, because that type needs a lot of downtime, a lot of time by themselves, a lot of time to think. It's one that doesn't push. It's a type that waits for the invitation to speak up, to become part of a project, to get into a new role. It's not the pushy type. It's not the outspoken type. It's not the go-getter type that you would normally expect to thrive in corporate. And so I brought all my questions, all my honestly asking for a friend type questions into that conversation. And it ended up being so beautiful. Now, another thing that I want to share from this conversation that is a little bit of a behind the scenes, but that I loved about Nadia, was that she came on and said to me, look, I prefer we record this conversation audio only. I would normally record guests with, like, we join a Zoom meeting, I would record audio and video so that I can pull some snippets and some reels from the conversation to share on socials. And Nadia said to me, I feel better just doing it on audio. And quite frankly, we had the best conversation. She was brilliant in that conversation, in that interview. And it just kind of showed me that there is so much magic in knowing ourselves deeply and knowing that, you know what, I thrive when I'm on audio. I can concentrate better when I'm not being filmed, when I'm not being recorded on video. I can do a much better job at delivering my best for your audience. And I respect that so much. And again, even though I didn't share a real snippet or anything like that, this became the #1 episode on the podcast. Nadia has an incredible community, a highly engaged community. She is a superstar. And again, I didn't see it coming, but human design and projectors in human design and how they thrive in corporate is the #1 episode. Go and listen to it. It is beautiful, and I hope we do that again, Nadia, if you listen to this. The number 5 is from a conversation I had recently, I had this year, and again, a guest that truly inspired me. One of those guests that I didn't expect would say yes, but it was so beautiful for her to do that. I had Soph Hirst on the podcast. She is an ex-Google senior manager. She is a Gen Z coach. So she really focuses on helping early talent or people early in their career to thrive. A lot of her work is focused on Gen Z, and I love that. We really got into what does Gen Z do differently? How are they different from us millennials? Like I say us millennials because I'm a millennial, and I'm often in awe of the Gen Zs on the team that I work in. And so first and foremost, she shared some really cool insights into that generation and how they think differently about work and how their corporate job is often an income stream to them, one of multiple income streams. And I'm not saying that to like in kind of like become a millionaire, raise multiple income streams and so on and so on, but more from a perspective of it's not that deep. Your corporate job is an income stream, and it is not your whole life. It is not your identity. And even though I place so much focus on my career, on my corporate job, and on what I'm doing here with the podcast, with Subtle Series, it just opened me up to think of it as one piece of the cake. And Soph brings that to life beautifully. She has a great metaphor. Go and listen to the episode to find out more. But there was one thing that she said that really stood out to me as well. And it was, you're super special and you're not that special. And this was specifically geared to early talent in the workplace. And I felt like she directly spoke to me when she shared that learning, because oftentimes in the corporate world, it can feel like we're obviously consumed with our own perspective, with our own growth. How do we get faster, better, further? How do we progress? How do we advance our careers? And it can often feel like it's all about us, but it's not all about us. But then there are moments where it really is about us, and where our brilliance comes to life, and where we can, shine in our own, whatever this looks like for us. Maybe you crush a project, maybe something works out beautifully for you at work. And there is so much brilliance, so much magic that you bring into the workplace. And that is what is very special. This is what is really something that you should hold on to and keep close. You're very special, but you're also not that special, because there are a lot more people there. It is not just about you. Most of the time we take things way too seriously. And so this typical Gen Z statement of like, it's not that deep, you're not that special, but it's a good thing. There is so much that you have to offer. There is so much good happening for you in the workplace. And I wish I could have Soph on every other week or so, because there's just so much you can learn from her. She clearly has a track record in, you know, a corporate work environment, having worked at Google, it just feels like every introvert dilemma that you could face in the workplace, she has an answer to. And so go and listen to that episode. I appreciated her so much. And she also shares a lot of great content and advice on her socials. So yeah, those are the 5 learnings. I'm going to stay at it purely, if only, to train and practice all these skills that I talked about. The networking, the reaching out to new, fantastic, killer guests, the awkward, friendly, I'm sure you see some of the awkward that happens, the public speaking, being in front of camera, learning and growing as you know, every time you do it. And yeah, quite honestly, staying true to who I am, staying true to being introverted, not the loudest in the room, a human design projector, and not having that mean something about myself that would hinder me in any way, that would hold me back, but it being something that is different, stands out about me, and becomes a differentiator, not only in corporate, but also in this space. And hopefully you feel some of that too. Hopefully you feel empowered. Ultimately, what I want to achieve is for you to feel proud of that, for you to not hide it away, and for you to walk a little taller, knowing that your introspection, you're being quiet, you're being empathetic, you're being observing, you're being genuine when it comes to building connections and meeting people. That is something that is very special about you. Hold on to that and come back next week. I mean, episode 101. On to the next 100. Thank you for being here and see you next time.